don't fear failure, but fear regret. There is so many opportunities to improve your business every single day. The hardest thing that I find running a technology company is not coming up with ideas, improve our product or improve our brand in the market. It's actually, what do we focus on?
So you started Envision, you did sell it. What was the catalyst for you going, you know what, I'm going to sell it and I'm going to embark on something else?
If you are developing a product that is truly changing the behavior of your customer base, your business is competition proof.
For any partnership, whether it's a business partnership, whether it's a personal partnership, you have to have alignment and shared values.
It's very, very difficult to rely on an agreement to protect you against not a good person. The one metric that I think matters above all else, and if you can achieve this metric, I think you're going to have an incredible business, and that is, are we...
You learned some really harsh business lessons. What did you learn about yourself as an individual?
It's a really great question.
Welcome to an exciting episode of Profit Made Simple. We have a special guest today, John Paul Rahme from XODA. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Mate, I'm really excited. You and I have known each other for a long time.
Yep.
You, like me, are a fellow fitness industry dinosaur. You've worn many hats and are doing many exciting things. I'd love to unpack that. So let's go right back to the beginning. And I believe you started as a Vision franchisee. Is that right?
That's correct. So going back in time a fair bit here, 2007, I think I did my personal training course. I just finished high school and I went into Vision personal training as a trainer. I worked at their Drummoyne location and I was there for about 15 months, I think from 07 to sort of middle of 2008. And I absolutely fell in love. Firstly, the fitness industry was only meant to be a very short-term thing for me.
Oh, so it was never the long-term plan.
No,
here we are,
no.
2 decades later.
So
and
I was meant to follow my elder brother into law, actually.
Okay.
So the idea was I left school. I was very into my gym and playing rugby and you know, health and fitness was a big part of my life. And I thought, here's an opportunity. I'll go and do something a bit different for a few years before I get a real career, and I'll go to uni and study law and work alongside my brother who had a very sort of successful firm at the time. He's about 8-9 years older than me, and from the get-go, when I stepped into the industry and I started training people, I mean, I was blown away by the different people that I met. That was the first thing. I had never really, sort of growing up in a small town, Windsor, which is about an hour west of the Sydney CBD, growing up and sort of, living a very good, fun childhood, but never really leaving the area, never really kind of
very insular.
meeting the same sort of people, and I guess I was blown away by the different people that I got to meet and the lessons that I was learning from them and how willing people were to, share their experiences with me. And I felt like that 15 months I spent, I was getting a crash course in business and life from so many enlightened older clients that I was training. And I just fell in love with the industry and decided that, owning a gym was what I wanted to do more. So I think I was only 20 or 21 and I opened a Vision personal training gym in the suburb of Baulkham Hills, again, about 30 Ks sort of west of Sydney CBD. And ran that for 5 years and it was tremendously successful. It was probably almost a bit of a false induction in the business, I'd say. I mean,
because we are going back, there was a lot less competition then.
2009.
Yeah, and personal training was at its peak at that point in time.
Absolutely.
And so you were experiencing a lot of success very early on.
It was such a different landscape. From 2009 to when I sold the business in 2015, in that time, I had Anytime Fitness, Virgin Active, 9 rounds, 12 rounds, F45s. I mean, all these brands opened up in my area in that window. I remember putting a half-page ad in the Hillshire Times for, $600 or $700. And for 6 weeks, my phone didn't stop ringing.
Wow.
And this is back in 09, 010.
Glory days.
This is before F45, before BFT, before any of the brands that we really recognize and know today. And no one was really doing personal training back then. I think the vision model and, Andrew Simmons, who I think he was very ahead of the curve in the way that he saw franchising fitness and,
Absolutely.
Vision franchised in the mid 2000s. And there wasn't really fitness franchises back then.
No.
So it was a really great period. And, in 160 square meters at next to nothing rent, we were doing 450, 500 personal training sessions a week. It was just incredible. So, that probably was a wonderful, I look back on those years, honestly, as some of the best years of my career. I loved
What did you love about it?
Again, it was the people that I got to meet.
Yeah.
And I think that was the power of the industry and the power of working in fitness is you get to meet people and you have an interaction with them that they don't have with anybody else in their day. I'm training a very successful business CEO or an executive, and here him and I are talking at 5:36 in the morning, and we're having an interaction, we're having a conversation that he's not going to have with anybody else that day. And he would touch so many people in a day, but I get to have a different kind of relationship and a different kind of conversation with him that probably his staff, employees, none of them get to have.
It is a real privilege, isn't it? I reflect back, and I had a very similar experience. I didn't know what I didn't know, right? I was young when I opened my first personal training studio, and here I've got all these CEOs, I've got people who are partners in big law firms, consulting companies, and I'm getting like this MBA in business and life.
It's a gift.
It is.
It was a real gift, and that's what I look back on with the most fond memories. I work with some great trainers as well who are, very young and committed to learning the craft, and were very dedicated to what they were doing. But the people I met in those years, and I still have friends today who were wonderful clients, and I got to go to, Formula One races overseas. I went to the Mayweather Pacquiao fight at the MGM Grand, and all this was done with clients and through their connections and through the doors that they opened for me. So I got to have these wonderful experiences and learn incredible lessons in what was a great thriving business. So I look back on those years with such fond memories. Like I said, success came a little bit early. I would learn the lessons a bit later on as to what can go wrong with business when you're a little bit naive or ignorant.
We'll unpack some of those.
We'll get to those great stories. But it probably gave me a wonderful experience. At the same time, it probably, didn't fully open my eyes to the world of business and to what can occur and happen. It did come, I don't want to say it came easy, but it came probably a little bit quick in those days. And I don't think I had fully understood or appreciated what went in to making that vision model successful. The process, the system, probably the years that was spent by people prior to me to give me a model that was successful. I don't think I fully appreciated that, and I don't think I fully appreciated, what you need to be aware of and what you need to protect yourself against when you're in business and you're doing business. I think it was probably a very joyful time, but I think the more important lessons I was going to learn a bit later.
I can't wait to unpack those. We will definitely get to those. So you started in Vision, you did sell it. And you speak about it with this real reverence and joy and fondness. What was the driver behind selling the business when it was producing a lot of money, great experiences? You had a wonderful team. I guess you didn't know what you didn't know at that point. You didn't know that this was obviously an amazing model and vehicle. Yeah. But what was the catalyst for you going, you know what, I'm going to sell it and I'm going to embark on something else?
I remember my brother sitting me down when I'd made the decision I was going to sell the business, and him looking at me and saying, "Why are you going to sell? You're very leveraged in this business. You don't have to do very much work. You make great money. Like, why are you going to sell?" And I had people ask me the same questions, and it just felt like it was the right thing to do at that time, and that's probably the best way I can explain it. Like, it wasn't an event, or it wasn't that I thought the grass was going to be greener or anything like that. I guess I've always been driven by the unknown. I've always been driven, moving into technology 4 years ago, I didn't have a technology background.
No, very different SaaS founder.
I'd always been interested in technology and I'd always dabbled in technology. And I'd probably say I had maybe, above average knowledge when it came to tech and compared to most people, but certainly not a technology background. And a lot of people thought it was a little bit ignorant of me to move from such a bricks and mortar industry like health and fitness, where everything is about human connection, to then moving into the tech space. But I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to do it. And there's a quote that I love, and it's don't fear failure, but fear regret. And I've always been petrified of the idea that I would get to the conclusion or the end of my life and look back and not really have a clear understanding of who I am or what I'm capable of. That's probably my greatest fear. I think you want to be able to look back on your life and have a sense of who you are and what you're capable of and what you can do. And you don't really know, I think, truly who you are if you've never been in a tussle.
Yeah.
Or you've never been in a...
That's when you really understand yourself.
Yeah.
You understand what you're made of. Because when life's good, and it was, you don't actually have to do the deep inner work. You don't actually have to go to the depths of despair and understand what makes you tick.
Yeah.
And I love that you had that realization very early on is I want to embark on the unknown.
Yep.
And I want to test myself. What am I capable of? And, what is my potential?
Yeah.
And for you at that point in time, it was another gym. Before we got into SaaS, there was a gym after Vision. What made you want to go from a franchise-owned business into something your own brand?
Well, I saw a few key movements and shifts in the industry. So I sold out of Vision PT in 2015, and I did have a desire to see what the group class model could do as well. I'd been in a very fixed personal training model for some time, which again had been hugely successful. I was seeing the rise of group training. I was seeing that consumer trends were moving and changing in terms of what they wanted from a health club and a fitness business. And I did want the opportunity to explore what that could look like. And I went into a very different model. I went into a group class-led model, predominantly yoga, Pilates, that offered personal training as well. And we were able to combine those elements into a business where people would come in and they were predominantly doing group training, and they were getting exposure to personal trainers, and they were getting exposure to what having a personal trainer would be like. And we were able to successfully move, about 30% of our members, and this was, back sort of doing about 750, 800 members in the model, to personal training. So we utilize classes as a way to kind of cast a very wide net. And again, we're in 2016 here, I think. So not a lot of places doing reformer Pilates, bar, aerial yoga, all under one roof.
Yeah, you were well and truly ahead of times there. You look at reformer Pilates now and it's booming. But I remember meeting you in 2015-16. You came to my offices in Alexandria, and that was the first time I met you. And you explained the concept then and there. And I was like, that's not something I've heard of before.
No, we had an incredibly well thought through designed aesthetic. We spent considerable amount on the aesthetic and the business. And again, you walk into health clubs now, and health clubs are sort of becoming the new country club.
Yeah, they
There's
are.
a lot of very nice.
But they weren't
aesthetic.
spending that much on fit outs.
Not then. No
way.
We had the living green wall. We had the whole eco-friendly theme throughout the entire build. So it was, bamboo flooring, bamboo towels. It was water-saving shower heads. It was a natural green wall. It was all these things that we'd done so that the business was environmentally friendly. It was sustainable. It was locally sourced sandstone from Coogee and all this. And those things, again, hadn't been done. And it was funny because I probably underestimated the impact that those little touches were going to have on the consumer. And I remember we did a survey of our first sort of 500-600 joiners, and I think it was something like 30 32% chose us because we were sustainable.
Yeah, and it's that shift has only become more profound, right?
Exactly.
It's a huge, particularly with younger generations. They want to have environmentally sustainable businesses that they support. So you're so far ahead of the time on three fronts immediately. Is number one is the modality.
Yep.
Number two is the design and the fit out. And then number three is the environment sustainability as well.
Yep.
So on all three fronts, just leaps and bounds. Like I don't think the industry caught up for another 5+ years. So in many ways that would have served you well and given you that key point of difference by just being ahead of the trend itself. What were some of the lessons that you learned from being in a franchise where everything, particularly the Vision franchise, where everything is laid out in intricate detail, to now you having this autonomy and you get to actually, have a lot more flexibility in what you do and how you do it. I can see how that would both serve you, but could also work against you as well.
I think what I learned from my years running fitness businesses, particularly starting off in a franchise, is you've got to continually find the ways to give your business the edge. And every process in your business can be refined, and every process is an opportunity to give your business a real edge in the market. And Vision was a very structured, systemized, and still is, very structured, systemized business where there wasn't a lot left on the table in terms of productivity.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And yes, you want creative flair, and yes, you want people to have the ability to think, in their own right and come up with their own ideas. And people should have an environment where they can share ideas. One of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs, he said, "Companies should be run by ideas, not hierarchy." But you need to have people coming in and investing their ideas into the business, because those ideas are potential pathways to, again, gaining the edge in a very competitive market. But at the same time, you've got to look at what your business does. You've got to look at the processes that are involved in making your business run, and how you can streamline, how you can optimize, and how you can refine those processes to give you a real edge in the market. And there is so many opportunities to improve your business every single day. The hardest thing that I find running a technology company is not coming up with ideas and not how we can improve our product or improve our, brand in the market. It's actually, what do we focus on?
It's discernment, right? In choosing, there's no shortage of ideas, but the real power is being able to prioritize which ones are actually going to be actioned. And I remember
that's the hardest part.
You and I have had many lunches together, and you said to make one change to our model, our software model, is people don't realize. They go, "Can you add this feature?" The consumer doesn't realize the amount of effort and money and time, and then the impact that has on all the other functions as well. So you've got to be highly selective and say, all right, what problem does this solve? Is this going to solve this problem for a lot of people? What's the impact that it has on the overall UX before you go and do it?
And I think you've got to have a very strict filter.
Yes. What is your filter?
So very simply. And I think I learned this very, very early on as well. And any business can utilize this filter, but we often revert to what I call vanity metrics, which are measuring the success of the business by, are we growing?
Yep.
And are we, improving our product? So look at it from a technology point of view. Are we releasing more features, and are we getting more customers? You can see those two things happening, and it's very easy to fall in the trap of thinking you're on the right path. And fitness businesses can do this as well. We're making our product better and we're getting more customers. We're on the right path. I think the one metric that I think matters above all else, and if you can achieve this metric, I think you're going to have an incredible business. And that is, are we changing users' behavior, or are we changing members' behavior? For me, that is the most important metric. So when we're looking at, are we going to go down this development path? Are we going to go down this path and innovate this particular feature? Or are we going to provide these new tools for health clubs? The question has to be, what behavior is that going to change?
Yeah.
If we do it. And if we change that behavior, is it going to lead to an incredible productive outcome for the business? So looking at it from the lens of a lot of people that will be listening to this who own health clubs, the behavior you're probably trying to change in your customers is you want them to be more healthy people. You want
to give them to a result, whatever that may be.
You want them to exercise more, you want them to eat better, and you want them to become, I would say, more health conscious people, more disciplined people. So that is the most important metric that you've got to measure. And what we keep coming back to as a software company is how do we actually provide tools to help measure that? Because it's not an easy thing to measure.
No, it's not.
You can look at booking behavior, you can look at attendances and all those things. Do they really truly give you a measure? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I speak to fitness business owners every day and they want to look at leads, they want to look at retention, and those are important metrics, but they're not the most important metric. If you are developing a product that is truly changing the behavior of your customer base, your business is competition proof. And when we look at the most successful technology products in the world, what did they do?
They shifted the behavior.
They changed the way we live.
Yeah.
When you look at social media, when you look at social media platforms, and you look at all these different things, you look at the iPhone, how we live today because we have an iPhone is significantly different to how we lived prior to having an iPhone. That is why that product is become an addition of our anatomy, and I think that is the true measure of a success of a business and a product. And that is what, when I'm looking at that filter and I'm looking at where do we go as a business and what do we do and what do we prioritize, that is the filter we have to look through. And if it doesn't pass that test, for me, it's probably not going to be a worthwhile investment.
It's such I love this, and I want everyone who's listening to this in the car, at home, to really take heed of this, because we do get caught up in the vanity. It's straight away, what's your rev? How many members do you have for our clients? And if we get back to how are we influencing behavior, and if we become the world's best at that, and we can drive that, we can measure that, we know what the key levers are in terms of getting that outcome, then we're going to build an incredible business, and we're going to be channeled on the right things. We're not going to chase the shiny objects. We're not going to keep adding more because society tells us to, or because it's trending or whatever else. We keep the most important thing the most important thing.
Yeah. Focus on what matters. And, I think I always say, and this is a motto that we hold very near and dear at XODA, but fitness businesses should be the most important businesses in their community. And I really, really believe that. And I believe that because of what they have to offer. We're an industry that is not selling, cigarettes and alcohol. We are an industry that is selling connection, community, health, longevity. And those things become, now sitting here talking, and I still consider myself young, but I'm certainly not as young as what I was when I started at Vision. But as you do get older and you start to see things through a different lens, you start to see the value in health, and in having an able body to be able to play with your kids and run around and still have energy. That saying, you can have 1,000 problems in life until you have a health problem, then you've only got one problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. And how many years when I was younger and as a trainer, and I wish I had, it's difficult because you need time and you need to live life before you've got real context. But I wish I had the context when I was young and I was a trainer, but people would come in, and I know what they mean now when they said, I went to the doctor and the doctor gave me bad news. And you could just see a difference in their mentality, their whole view on life, and all these things that they've been sacrificing their health to achieve, and their career and their work, and they wanted to get a nice car and do this and do that, and all of that just goes away straight away.
It does.
And they realize very quickly that it means nothing.
It's superfluous. It really is.
And we as an industry, the health and fitness industry, is giving that to people, is giving that back to people, is giving them back the most important asset that they have in their life. And we need to treat our businesses, we need to treat health and fitness businesses with that importance, and business owners who operate in this space should walk into their business with that lens.
Yeah, and I think it's the driver that a lot of them got into the industry for. They see the potential to really change and shift someone's life it can get lost in the grind and the minutiae and the day-to-day of just running a business itself. But that should be the North Star that we keep coming back to time and time again. I want to talk about some of the lessons that you've learned, because you talked before, you said, it was very charmed when I owned my first business. We've talked about your second business, and obviously you saw things that other people couldn't. It positioned you well, but you learned some really hard lessons in that second business, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. From a business point of view, I opened with a business partner, and him and I had a shared vision of what we wanted the business to become, and it grew very, very fast. We went from I think within the first 12 months we were reaching over 2.5 million in revenue. It grew very, very quickly. I got to see, I guess, the ugly side of partnerships. And the ugly side of when, you're in a business and two people are pulling in very different directions in terms of what they value and what they want to do. I've always seen myself as a very loyal person, and being a business owner from 20, I've probably spent my life in business ensuring that everybody else got paid first and ensuring that, my team were well looked after and the business was well looked after. And I think sometimes you go into business partnerships a little bit ignorant, thinking everyone's got that same value. And I learned very quickly that that's not the case. And I went into partnership with somebody that there was enough people telling me it was a bad idea, and there was enough warning signs, and I went well and truly against my instincts, and I paid the price.
I think it's a really important lesson there.
And that was the first lesson.
Yeah, there's two things I just want to extract out of that. Number one, you had two sets of values, different sets of values.
Correct.
You said you had loyalty, you were paying your people first. That wasn't those values weren't shared by your business partner at the same time. And
absolutely,
for any partnership, whether it's a business partnership, whether it's a personal partnership, if it's with a JV, you have to have alignment and shared values. That is the absolute heart of any successful partnership whatsoever. And it's why I love partnering with you and XODA, because you reflect many of the values that we have at Fitness Profit. The second part, and everyone would know this, but it's a lesson that sometimes you need to be taught many times. And that is that you actually have to listen to your intuition.
Absolutely.
If there's red flags, you can't put your head in the sand. You can't sweep them under the carpet. You need to confront those. And so if there's something not feeling right, then that needs to be
listen to your intuition.
Yeah.
And if I could go back in time, I would have listened to my intuition. There was many other lessons I learned. I learned that it's very, very difficult to rely on an agreement to protect you against not a good person, and I think that's the reality. We ignorantly sometimes believe that because we have a contract or we have an agreement, it's going to protect us. You're not going to make a good deal with a bad person.
Yeah.
You can't make a good deal with them, regardless of what you've got in front of you, what piece of paper you've got. And unless you've got a considerable amount of money that you're willing to throw away to ensure that what you have in that agreement is honored, it's not really worth much. I learned navigating through the legal system is incredibly tricky.
And expensive.
And very expensive. I spent more money on lawyers than I'll dare say on this podcast because of that, the issues I had with my business partner. But I learned as well that you need to understand how companies work, company structure, what it means to be a director, what it means to be a shareholder, who has rights, who can do what. If you're sitting down and you're doing a shareholder agreement or a partnership agreement, generally now they're called shareholder agreements, make sure you understand what is in that document. Don't rely on a lawyer to sit there and give you the high level. Understand what the obligations are as a director. If there are two directors, what are their obligations? What do they need to agree on? What don't they need to agree on? What are the role that shareholders play in a company? Do they play a role? These are things that you need to understand before you go into partnership with anybody, whether they're your best friend, someone that you've just met. Make sure you've got a really, really good grasp on what is in a shareholder agreement, what your rights and obligations are, what your partner or your co-founder or director, what their rights and obligations are, what they can and can't do without your consent, and vice versa. I didn't understand any of that. I blindly signed a shareholder agreement. I went against my intuition, and then I had to spend a considerable amount of money on lawyers fighting in the court system, which I had no idea how to navigate. And as a result of all this money I invested in solicitors, I was able to learn what those agreements actually meant. Had I have known all of that prior, it certainly would have been probably a very different outcome for me in the business. So these are some of the lessons I learned, and I would encourage everyone to hopefully take something away from.
You learned some really harsh business lessons. No doubt they've served you now in your subsequent ventures. What did you learn about yourself as an individual?
It's a really great question. I'm pretty tough. I'm pretty tough. I would say that, that 12, 18 months going through that business breakup, that litigation, the financial loss, I would say a lot of people probably would have struggled to come back from that. I just kept going. And I think what I've always had the confidence in myself is I can handle quite a lot. I can get through quite a lot. And I think that has served me incredibly well, getting through that event, moving on to the next business, growing a technology company, which is an incredibly difficult feat to do. Building a technology company from scratch, growing it, scaling it to where it is now, which honestly, when we started this venture, I never thought we'd get to where we are now.
Well, let's talk about that. So you've had such a contrast of experience in business right now. You had this incredible business as your first business, second business, learned some really hard lessons about people, partnerships, legalities, intuition, but you developed resilience through that.
Yep.
You then saw a gap in the marketplace. You saw that there was an unresolved problem, and that was with software, in particular software that helps gyms run. And I want to ask you, what was the gap that you saw? Because XODA exists to solve a problem. What were the problems you identified? So
we definitely saw that there was a real need for a more modern solution. The technology systems that I had used in my fitness businesses and the conversations that I kept having with fitness business owners over the years kept coming back to limitations within their software, and also software that wasn't really modern or fit for the modern consumer. We saw opportunity in that consumer demand. Consumers are far more demanding in terms of the experience that they are having from a technical point of view with the businesses that they interact with now, because they are very spoiled with utilizing great technology tools in their day-to-day.
Yeah.
Right?
They've been exposed to it. Like, you can get anything with an app with a couple of buttons pushes.
I got here in an Uber today and it was click, click, and a car turned up. Yeah. So they are very, very spoiled in terms of the way they interact and engage with technology and the problems that technology is solving in their day-to-day. So they look at the interactions they're having with businesses now with a higher criticism.
Yes.
Over the technology
Their
experience.
Expectations are a lot higher.
Correct. So we saw a huge opportunity to be able to provide a technology platform that was more modern, that mimicked more how they would use other modern technology platforms and bring that into the health and fitness space. And that's what we really wanted to do. And that means a platform that's intuitive, a platform that feels similar to how they use other technology systems so they can pick it up and they can use it easily. We saw the growing rise and trend of fitness businesses driving the community aspect and driving the member-to-member interaction. And it's not really facilitated or aided by the technology in the market. So we wanted to also create tools, which we've done very successfully, to allow customers to be able to connect and interact and engage with each other, to be able to create more meaningful connections in their health club, and not leave that all up to the trainers in the actual locations, to actually provide an application that allows them to stay connected to their club, even though they're not in the business. So we saw some opportunities there. And it was kind of a chance, meeting with my now co-founder. And that's when we decided that, we were just going to give this thing a go. And we were fortunate enough to get some support very early on, which allowed us to build out our first version and get it to market, pretty quickly.
It's quite the shift going from a gym owner, a B2C company, into a SaaS owner, B2B, like enormous shift. What
it's
is
a completely different business?
Completely, right? Yeah. And so obviously some of the macro principles apply and they translate across and some of those skills do. But what are some of the skills that you've had to really develop and refined in making that shift?
I've never been a detail person. I think the success of my fitness businesses was heavily relied on my ability to be able to lead and sell. I was able to influence, staff to develop and to learn and to want to be better. I was able to convince customers that they should invest in their health and fitness. And I've always been that kind of leader, more of an influencer, more of a big picture, kind of high level guy. Moving into the world of technology, the detail matters so much. And in the first 12, 15 months, I think I suffered a lot in that role because I was skipping over the detail. So I had to become more thorough. I had to become more, understanding of the process of what was required to execute something in particular, as opposed to just being the one who gave the order or gave the command. So I had to become a lot more detail orientated. And I had to really learn how to prioritize. In the world of technology, in comparison to running a fitness business, there are a lot more facets in the business. There are a lot more things that can go wrong when you run a technology company. So really becoming in the detail and following through on that execution was pretty critical for me.
Big lessons there, and obviously areas that you needed to develop and refine. What have you learned about fundraising? Because that's obviously another element as well. I mean, not that people don't raise funds for a gym or a physical service, bricks and mortar facility, but it's very different in the technology space. Yep. And so you would have been, again, venturing into this unknown. How did you learn that skill and how are you continually developing it? Because it's so important, obviously, to the growth of the business itself.
I learned how to fundraise through many, many failed fundraising pitches, and getting a lot of feedback. And that's the reality. I think you have to, don't ever get caught up in this mentality of it's got to be perfect before I try. You're going to learn a lot along the way, and you've got to put yourself in the position to be able to learn those lessons. And you can't put yourself in the position to learn those lessons in your office on your own, pitching to yourself in front of the mirror, right? You've got to get out in front of people. So I think what's important is when you are going to raise capital, understanding the stage that your business is at and trying to find investors that are going to be best suited to that stage. So in technology, you've got seed rounds or seed capital, which you would invest very, very early on when you've got a very small portion of your product built. You've maybe got slightly enough proof of concept and you're looking for someone who's got a high risk appetite, who's looking for very significant returns, wants to get in early, probably private money or private wealth. Then as your business starts to scale and you've got real momentum, and then you're looking at your business, understanding that if we just have more capital to invest in marketing and sales, we're going to grow because we've got proof of concept. We know customers want it. We know it's scalable. That's when you're going to more sophisticated investors who have larger amounts of money to invest, who want to see real traction before they're going to jump in, but there's still enough upside for them to get a return. So there's different stages, and depending on what kind of money you're looking for, who you're going to go and invest to. And I think you need to know that. Who is the investor profile that's going to suit the stage of business that you're at, and whether you want just what we call dumb money, someone who's just going to put the money in and, maybe answer a phone call from you once a year or something like that, or whether you want assisted capital, someone who has the capacity to give you capital but knows the industry, can open doors for you, can help you win deals, can help you navigate through the world of growing a business. So there are different types depending on what sort of investor you're looking for and what stage of the business you're at. So know what stage of business you're at and really have a clear understanding of the profile of the investor you're looking for are very critical.
Love that. Now, I listened to a podcast yesterday, Stephen Bartlett and Daniel Priestley, and they're talking about how the world is just dramatically and rapidly changing thanks to AI at a pace that no one thought was even possible. And Daniel Priestley said it's never been a better time to start your SaaS business because as opposed to 4 years ago, you don't need the same level of funds. You don't need the same number of people on the team. The barrier to entry is quicker than at any time in history, and it's only going to continue to be so. So as a SaaS owner, how do you protect yourself against that? Because this now may mean that other competitors are going to jump into the space. You're going to see a lot more supply in terms of SaaS operators. So how do you build a moat and have a clear point of difference and ensure that you are the market leader and that you're relevant with a birth of new competition?
It's a great point. I think first and foremost, we have to be quick to adopt AI ourselves.
So what does that mean?
So that means utilizing AI to allow us to help speed up products, generate code. We use artificial intelligence to automate testing. So the speed in which we can produce features, we can turn what traditionally was 4 or 5 weeks of work into 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
With assisted AI, with AI. We need less engineers, which means there is more capital there to invest in marketing, to create a strong brand, to create strong brand awareness and presence in the market, which again makes you a little bit harder to disrupt. And you've got that reputation, you've got that confidence in the market. And it also means introducing artificial intelligence and AI into our platform for our customers to be able to use, which our customers can get really useful prompts, predictive analytics, insights from our AI bots in terms of how their business is trending and what things to look out for. So you have to adopt AI. That's the reality. We utilize AI across the board in terms of our business internally, from support right through to generating code, features, UI design. It's utilized testing. It's utilized in every compartment. It used to be a measure of how successful your technology company was by how many engineers you had. Now it's the opposite. Now, if you're a really big business and you can have 3 or 4 engineers, now you're successful because you're leveraging these tools. So the success metrics have shifted definitely, and potential investors or potential acquirers want to see that you can operate lean. And we've been able to build quite a substantial company without needing, the staff that you traditionally think that a business our size would need, say 10, 15 years ago. So you've got to implement AI. You can't stand there thinking that because we have a platform, we have customers, we are protected. You've got to make that innovation. You've got to make that step. The other difficult thing, I think, in terms of we play what was in a vertical SaaS space. We are very, very specific for a particular type of business, which means we can run very, very deep, sophisticated logic to work for that business, which protects you a little bit more from being a generic SaaS provider, okay, where you're kind of industry agnostic. So we want to be more for a particular type of business. We want to build very specific tools for that particular vertical, which makes us a lot more defendable to a vertical agnostic SaaS company. So it's about knowing your target customer, knowing the problems that you're solving, and being incredibly sophisticated at solving those problems in a very meaningful, deep way, not trying to be a provider for everybody.
Yeah. That
so
makes
narrowing your focus and narrowing your customer.
I love one of the points you made in terms of integrating the AI. It's on many fronts, but one of them is me as a gym owner now. You're building AI into the platform so it can take all the data that's going there and it can interpret it for me and give me some really practical insights on what is happening in my business and what I need to do differently.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. And I think that's one of the first big shifts that we see AI being able to play a role in the health and fitness space. We've talked at length. Many people have talked at length about, is AI going to steal our jobs? Is it going to replace a trainer? I think in the short term, I don't see AI disrupting the need for somebody to go into a health club and have an interaction with a staff member if they want to learn about their health and fitness, or they want to get improve their fitness or lose weight. I think that traditional model is going to stand for some time. I think AI is going to be able to provide meaningful insights to business owners about the direction they need to go in their business, and coming back to that point, what they need to be doing more of to critically change the behavior of their customer. And the more information we can absorb, if we're getting access to the client's lifestyle data and how their sleep is and their walks and their steps, and the more information that we can start to bring into the platform, which is what we're continuously working on, how far we can kind of cast that net. The more insights we can give and the more real insights we can give about the genuine impact that business is having in the community. And that's what we want to be able to provide.
And it does come back to your point earlier. The very important point is we're here to change behavior. AI will help us do that more effectively and efficiently, because now we can start to extract data from all different facets of health and even give better prescriptions as a byproduct.
Absolutely. And I mean, all AI is the capacity to be able to review significant amounts of data very quickly and provide interpretations or predictions based on that data. And that's all AI is. AI is about looking at historically what has occurred and using that historical information to be able to predict what's going to happen in the future. And that's what, when we talk about personalization or hyper-personalization is when, I think I remember you talking once at a Filex and giving the example of going to your favorite coffee shop and they know your order before you arrive. And the reason they know your order is because that's what you ordered yesterday and the day before and the day before. They didn't just guess. So AI allows us to do that at scale.
Yeah.
It allows us to look at what this person's behavior has been. What are they most likely going to want today? And delivering that to them before they even ask for it or know that they want it. And that's hyper-personalization. And so AI has that ability to be able to, I guess, influence the industry in that way and allow us to provide personalization, even though we've got hundreds of members or thousands of members. That's the exciting thing.
I think it's very exciting. I really do. I want to know what is next for you and XODA. What are you working on? What are you excited about? What's part of what are the priorities moving forward?
So definitely this year, coming back to our conversation, it is more and more how we're going to embed AI into our platform.
Yeah.
And the ways that we're going to use AI to continue to scale our business and scale our business faster. XODA's at a really exciting stage now because we are growing very quickly. We've put in years and years of hard product work and getting out there in the market, and now it's sort of paying that dividend, and we're seeing that hypergrowth across about 11, 12 countries now. So we are looking at some different markets that we're going to be going into and really looking to expand throughout 2026. There's some pretty exciting updates coming pretty soon from our world.
I'm very excited for you and the brand itself. I have a really strong affinity to it. But I love what you said as well is you're having some hyper growth, but that's not because of one magical campaign or something that you've done this year. That's because of all the work that you have sowed leading up to this point.
I think in any business, what we have to remember is that time is going to play a role in that business journey. And we can do all the right things. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to remove the involvement of time and the role that time is going to play. And I think we have to remember that I'm doing the right things. I'm getting out there. I'm putting out content. Why isn't my business growing? Sometimes it just needs more time. And I feel like we've done a fair bit of time in growing the business and in getting the reputation and the product where it is. And we're certainly now seeing the advantages of that. So, it's something important for us to remember. You can do all the right things on day one, but time is going to play a role in everybody's journey. And it's very, very rare that I see a business open up and be able to somehow remove or negate the impact that time, the role that time is going to play. So hold on to that. Remember, these things don't often happen overnight. They very rarely do, actually.
Yeah, well said. A question that I love to ask all of our guests, and that is, what is the best piece of advice you have ever been given or received, JP?
The best piece of advice is always going to come from my wife. There's no doubt. Very, very early on, in when we had kids, and was early days of growing XODA, you come home from the office and you're with the family and you're on your phone and you're working because emails are coming through, and you just stop for a moment to answer this. And I remember my wife saying to me, if you have work to do, stay at the office and do work. If you have to come home at 8, 9 o'clock, we understand, we're here. But if you come home, you're coming home to be with us. So one of the best advice I ever got was just be where you are. And it sounds very simple, but it's actually quite difficult to do in the modern world. So from now on, if I know I've got a lot of work to do and it's 5 o'clock and I have to do it, I'm just going to stay in the office and do it. But if I make the decision to go home, I'm making the decision to be with my family. So the phone goes away. I'm not getting disrupted. I'm not taking calls. I'm with my family. And I think that's served me incredibly well. And I try and live that as best I can to just be where I am. So I think that's been a life-changing advice, to be honest.
Yeah, I got told very similar advice from my very smart and wise partner, and it served me particularly well. And it's just the making sure we're executing the discipline to uphold that on a consistent basis. JP, there's going to be people that love this conversation. They want to learn a little bit more about XODA, your journey, what you're doing. How can they best get in touch?
XODA.com, jump on. We can find out a bit more about our business. There's ways you can get in touch with us there. They can contact me directly to john@XODA.com if they want to get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to chat to anyone in the industry, whether it's they want to learn about XODA or whether they just want to ask my opinion about, what they're looking to do in their business, or they want to raise capital, or they want to expand from site 1 to site 2. We've seen a lot in the last 4 years of running XODA, and we do see a significant amount of data across many markets. So very happy if it's just, you want to ask my opinion on something, or if you want to learn more about our product. Come and have a chat to us.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. Thank you for always being such a great supporter, serving the fitness community so well. Make sure you do reach out to JP. He's just he's a man that gives and shares a lot with no expectation. And I just want to say I appreciate you, everything that you're doing for our industry, our clients in particular. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's next.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thanks, JP. Thank you guys for watching today's episode. If you got value, you know what to do. Give us a quick like, subscribe on whatever channel that you're listening or watching on. And let's build a business that gives you 3 things: more impact, more income, and more freedom. Thanks for watching.